It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
I don't want to lose. I want to win.
I need professional help.
Sports Betting Weekly.
Sports Betting Weekly, sponsored by EasySportsData.com. The books use data, shouldn't you too? And this is Easy Sports Data, like the preschoolers use. EasySportsData.com.
I win here and I win there. Now what?
Sports Betting Weekly.
I want to win.
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
Money talk. Here comes the money.
You should also check out SportsBettingLessons.com. You'll learn some old tricks because sometimes how you bet is more important than who you bet. SportsBettingLessons.com.
Let's just do it. Let's meet this thing head on. And you were in it to win it. Talk about an education.
Sports Betting Weekly.
Wow, winning.
Sports Betting Weekly.
Sit back and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Sports Betting Weekly. Let's see here. We got to get some people involved with the show, but I am second half Chaz, and we got a new setup here, which is great unless you own a custom soccer shirt that's green, and you got a green screen behind you. Then you're screwed. There's no other way to work. However, I am going to do a floating head. We're going to do a skit where Wes will ask, a Karnak question. Remember Karnak and the Johnny Carson show? I'm dating myself, but comedy's funny. When it's funny forever. And I'm going to be the floating head because if you can imagine, this is all green with my green Sports Betting Weekly soccer jersey. I just was a floating head. Woo. So welcome to Sports Betting Weekly. I got a camera in a new location. I got a new mic. It turns out, Wes, you know how we were having all those audio issues? It wasn't anything but the board. The board's got 4 microphone slots, and one of them was shot. I bought all new equipment. All I had to do was move it over. But we're going to be going on a few more shows in the near future, so I figured I might as well go for it. What are you going to do?
I can't hear you, Chaz.
Jonathan, can you hear me okay?
No, I'm kidding. You were talking about audio issues and getting them resolved, so I just thought I'd throw that out there.
That was an April Fool's Day joke. That's a mama's joke. All right, so where are we at? The first thing we're going to do, we're going to introduce Jonathan from Vegas Insiders, but we're also going to hop on Major League Baseball Scoreboard because what do we know? We know that I started my day talking to Jonathan, and it was great because I hit 6 bets on the Toronto game with the team total overs and the overs, and it was just a slugfest, and it was what a great way to start my morning because it's early out here. The game started 10 o'clock on a Thursday. I mean, I still got to work, prep for a show. I got things to do. But to hit 6 bets to start your day and all in one game, and it was in the 9th inning. In the 9th inning, I won my last bet. I didn't have to watch the last 6 outs. So that was pretty cool. So, Jonathan, we talked about a couple things. So what we're going to do right now is I've got in front of me the board for the NBA, the NHL, and the MLB. Jonathan's been a friend of the show for a long, long time. I mean, we've been talking for years. I think, though, this is the first time we've had him on with video. Or did you come out one other time earlier? Where are we in terms of what you're doing? We've talked to you for a long time. We know that you bet everything. I would say if someone's going to ask me, if I was getting grilled, that one thing that makes me know that I really do know who we call Jonathan from San Antonio, I would say he's probably got a better record with schools you've never heard of than most people have with Big C. Is that fair?
That would be a good assessment. I like small schools in college basketball. I just think that there's too many games for experts to give the best spread they can get. Too many teams, too many schools. There's like 300 D1 schools, and they care about Duke, North Carolina's, Kentucky's. Everybody watches those games. Nobody really cares about Loyola Marymount, Old Dominion, that you can get some spreads that you probably can pick up a few extra points on. That's how I do it. But I mean,
it's cash and tickets with them, and you cash tickets with them. So right now, are you 100% baseball? We're going to talk about Vegas Insiders in a bit, but what I'm buying some live action. I'm on some games, but I got the Houston game, which hasn't started yet. And I've got the Cleveland game tonight with Seattle. Are you on either of those games?
No, I'm not. I got 4 games I'm on today. They're not either of those games. We talked earlier, right? And I hit the under in that Milwaukee game.
Yep, that was a nice
That was
play.
my morning play.
Now that for me,
that dude Burns just a little side note, he hit 58 strikeouts in a row without a walk.
Yeah,
That's
I
like
did see that.
That guy was unbelievable.
Now that was my big play too, because the Easy Sports data showed us, and I talked about this on the DCs. I mentioned to them that if you start right about now and you hop on a pitcher, you could right into the All-Star game and end up with like a 25-4 record. And the kid Flattery for St. Louis, that's what he's doing. So we hopped on him today. Jonathan, not only we were getting plus money, we were getting plus runs. Talk about an easy W. Do you have any NHL or NBA games you're looking at today?
Yeah, so I know we like the live betting, and unfortunately, so for me, a lot of times I like the dogs. I will pick the dogs. I'll take a money line. Not afraid to do money line. So I do have a slide dog tonight in Miami. That was a really late addition. I think right now they are up. You're getting like a plus 115, but I think Embiid ended up playing. So it's kind of tough. They're up right now. They're up early, so it's really hard if I like Miami to bet them live because you're probably not going to get any good value on them. And then later on, I'm going to take Portland money line as well. They're plus 4.5, but win, they're in. They won last night. Win tonight, you're in. You don't got to worry about the play-in tournament. They have a tiebreaker versus the Lakers. I think the motivation's there, and they've been playing out of their minds. They're 7-3 ATS last 10. I'm just 4.5. I'll take them that they can win on the court tonight. And you got Phoenix. They're already secured a top 2 seed. I mean, I think talking about Phoenix, if you have any extra bucks laying around, they're not a bad play to play them to win the West. You're getting like plus 600 to win it all. You're getting like plus 1,400. They're a really good team. So there's some good value there. But I think tonight Portland got a chance to get in the playoffs without the tournament, and I think that's what they're going to play for tonight.
Yeah, Blackhawk West from 151 Sports Investing. How many times have we talked about at the end of the season when you're getting to the playoffs, and it doesn't matter the sport, you got to know who's out, who's in, and who's maybe.
Yeah, you do, and you can't blame these teams for resting players. It's the smart thing to do. But as he mentioned, Embiid is playing. I don't know how long he's going to be playing, but you asked if there was any live action. I actually just jumped on the 76ers. I realize that they've clinched. I realize they're pretty landlocked in the standings, but I do like that gap to close. It's a 1-point spread for the game. I'm on the first half plus 7.5 right now, and I'm probably going to dip back in at plus 8.5. I don't know that they even care enough to come back and win this game or first half, but I do like getting 7.5 and 8.5. Far superior team. So I'm in both of those for the first half, and then I'm also in the NHL. The game that's going on right now, I like the over 1.5 for the first period. This is St. Louis and Minnesota. Both of these teams don't like each other. It doesn't matter that they're landlocked in the playoffs. The NHL is a very unique situation for the playoffs because they're going to play the first 2 rounds, and they're going to do it by playing the same exact teams they've been playing all season long. So resting players doesn't really do much there. They're trying to establish some type of physical dominance or mental edge over the next guy. So I think that they're going to come out blazing, both teams, and regardless of goaltending, I think that they're going to be scoring some goals, and it might be less physical, but I like over 1.5 goals. That wasn't as good of a line there. It was a minus 145, but if it cashes, nobody really cares if it was minus 145 or plus 145.
Well, just so you know, too, I just got it at minus 130. So that's not bad. But technically, now that is not a live play, but it is a live play because we're betting it now. But it's.
I was going to jump on quick. The less physical might actually help you for the over. They're not trying to get hurt. There might be less defense, less physicality, maybe more shots at the goal. So I think that's a great look.
Well, the number one thing that block shots is a big part of hockey. And I would imagine that, if you're up and it's clinched and you got a week left before the playoffs start, I may not want to slide in front of a 120 mile an hour puck. I don't know about Mike that.
To do that in a playoff game, yes, all day, every day in hockey, you can't let either team get an edge. But when they're both clinched, you're not diving in front of pucks. You're not you're not sprinting extra hard to try and stop the icing call. So it might be a few garbage goals on net, but
so here's what you could do too with Major League Baseball in the first 5 innings. The Houston game hasn't started yet either. That starts here in a couple minutes, so that's going to be my play. I got over 2.5 minus 123 for the first 5 innings. I don't think we won't get that in for the game. These aren't going to cash in the game. That's one of the things, Jonathan, we like to do is cash these tickets while we're on the air. But I don't care at the end of the night when I go to bed whether they cash between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock New York time, or before I go to bed. As long as they're cashing, I'm good. So that's where we're at with that. Now, one of the things that I got to get to is and deal with the new technology here. You know, I'm doing the best that I can. The floating head really did get to me. It really made me laugh. I laughed so hard because I've done it before. I've owned that shirt, and I've owned the green screen for 7 years. I just hadn't used it in such a long time that I forgot. And it was funny. It brought up a couple things that I'm going to do later on that are pretty funny. One of them I think is hilarious, but you know what? Sometimes hilarious to you ain't hilarious to others. So as long as you don't cross the line, we'll be okay. So what I want to do is I want to mention championshipfootballs.com. That's this thing. That's this one here, that one there, and then Wes, just point down on your side. Championshipfootballs.com. It is the coolest present they'll open that day, guarantee. We got tracking numbers from Rawlings on our 5-time Super Bowl champion Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl footballs. We are going to be selling them in Houston at the Pride Show. They're going to be autographed by Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl Hall of Famers. We could be more excited not. So championshipfootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. Now, what about Bob Baffert? I'm going to ask our buddy Black Hawk West. Is he a cheater? Is he a cheater?
You know, I'm not one to judge, and I'm certainly not an attorney or a jury. But, you know, I guess what annoys me, and I'm just going to bring some other sports into the picture, you know, when there's such a fantastic, historic performance by an individual in the sports world, viewer that just tunes in for the Kentucky Derby and acts like they know something. Everybody knows that white hair, Bob Baffert, and so I really hope that it plays out to be where there was nothing, you know, no foul play going on. But it's a sad black eye for the sport that it's out there because I love horse racing. I really do.
Are you betting the Preakness?
Yeah, I'm going to bet the Preakness for an entertainment standpoint. You know, the reality is that the whole day I did better on every single race at Churchill than I did on the Derby itself. The Preakness is a little bit different approach than the Derby because it's a much smaller field. I mean, I think it's 7 horses. It's a little bit easier to read the program. And you brought it up last week. I am looking at the horses that didn't win the Derby because when you read the program, they kind of should have. And you got to wonder, what would they have done with a much smaller field? There's no 19, 20 horses in this race. So, you know, I'll have something on the Preakness, but it's probably going to be my smallest investment of the day. I'm probably going to be betting the race 3, the random $50,000 claimer, because it's a little bit better apples to apples comparison when I'm reading form.
All right, so let's look at our live action. One of the plays that Jonathan mentioned was the Philadelphia at Miami. Miami's now up to a double-digit lead at the end of the first quarter, so I don't think that 7.5 is going to work out for you, Blackhawk West. But one of the things Jonathan mentioned, he mentioned that because he picked a dog and they're winning, that he's probably not going to be into live action. But I would kind of lean the other way and saying I have no trouble middle in a game like that, where I've got Miami and say because right now Miami's up by 15. What do we know from watching NBA on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network on Thursdays at 8 o'clock in New York? So wherever you are, you got to go by New York. It's 8 o'clock in New York, and you've watched the NBA with us. You know that this 15-point lead could be gone in the next 12 minutes. It's amazing how quarters change. So that's the kind of thing that I would be looking at. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to find the second quarter line, right? I'm going to do that for Philadelphia. There's no way it's 15 points, right? It's going to be a handful of points maybe.
Yeah, I agree. And while you're looking through that, I think it's important to point out that 4 minutes into the NHL matchup, 2 goals have been scored, and we have a cash ticket.
How many minutes?
4 minutes in, 2 goals have been scored.
Ago.
Cash on that over 1.5.
We cashed it. 7 minutes is a good one, Wes. 7 minutes is a good one.
I'm slipping. We had a 3-minute cash a few months back.
2-0 Minnesota. All right, so they took that second half. They took that second half bet off. It was 4.5. They took it off the board. Second quarter for Philadelphia. I'm going to try to see what happens there. Good job, Wes, on that. I actually hopped on it for the quarter. I hopped on it for the game, but I'm going back in now because I've just seen too many times where we can cash those. So I'm going to go one more time on the over for the game at 7.5 plus 112, and for the first period, I'm going to go with the. I'm going to go a small little less than what I won, as you've always taught me with your math, on the 2 more goals in the next 15 minutes.
The one that is jumping off the page at me now with this game is because Minnesota's up 2-0. I'm now, and we didn't care who scored those first 2, but I'm now looking at this minus 120 pay for St. Louis to go over 2.5. Because if you're on the side where you believe that the Blues are winning this game, they're going to have to score 3 to do it. And as quickly as those goals have been scored, I'm gonna look to catch better odds than minus 120 because we've already cashed. So I'm just looking for a place to stick half of that profit. We go another 2 minutes without a goal. I'm looking at St. Louis over 2.5 for the game, and I think that they'll probably get that before the end of the second period.
See how we're doing there, and then baseball. Back over to the baseball scoreboard. Texas has scored already in the top of the first, which is great because I got Houston team total over. I have no problem with the other team scoring when I'm betting team total. All right, so what's the next thing? Let's go back and kind of, our show's a little unique in that the first thing we care about is getting those live bets in. And the reason is because you could cash them in how many minutes, Blackhawk West, for 151 Sports Investing? 7 minutes. 7 minutes we cash tickets. But we're part of the Belly Up Sports Podcast Network. We're on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And this show is one of the reasons why I say personally it's an app worth its weight in Bitcoin because we make money for people every single week. Then we make money all week. So if you're looking at the bottom of the screen, you see the banner. That's the information for Jonathan. So what you can do is you can go on VegasInsider.com. You can go under MLB. That's how I went because I knew we were talking MLB. And then it says buy picks. And then he's got an easy checkout package for Jonathan. But Jonathan, it says you got 2 different ways you can get your plays. One isn't guaranteed and one is. So tell me the difference in what you think people should do.
Right now, I'm leaning in the member players. Member players is basically people that subscribe to Vegas Insider. So I give out basically you don't got to pay for those. It's first if you subscribe to Vegas Insider, you can get that play. If you don't, you have to pay for it. But guarantee basically is you pay for the pick. If it loses, you don't pay. It's free. If it wins, that's when you pay. So those are the 2 options. You can also just get the daily picks, which is a little cheaper, but you're not getting a refund if I do lose. And I have lost. I'm actually doing baseball and NBA right now. I started on NBA. That was my first year on Vegas Insider, so they started me with the NBA season. I'm doing pretty well. My guaranteed plays right now for the NBA. My guaranteed plays, I think I'm the 4th best capper on the site for guaranteed, and I'm hitting at a 56% clip, going 58.45 for guaranteed plays. So anytime you pay for that and it doesn't cash, you don't have to pay for it. It's free money. Other than that, doing pretty well on the site, getting some sales out there, and it's tough. Everybody wants to be a capper. Everybody thinks they can be a capper. Everybody thinks they know sports, but it's really tough when you got to get there. And it's not just like this game. You actually have to dive into these games. Look at who's starting, who's playing, conditions for baseball, weather. It's kind of crazy how much work I thought I knew I was getting into, and it's not. Every day I got to write up a little blurb, and one thing you can see in my baseball, if you go to the site, I think I'm the number 1 guy in the underdogs right now for my baseball plays. I do a lot of underdogs. I think I have probably 1 underdog every day. It's just because in baseball, it's all about bullpen. It's all about, you can have a great starting ace pitcher, but if he only goes 5 a game, that means 4 innings got to come from the bullpen. 4 innings, other people got to pick up the slack, and a lot of times they can't do it. So it's just looking about value, and I will be on there for NFL. I will be on there for college football. I will be on there for college basketball next year as well. So I'll be on there for all the major sports. I'm not really versed in hockey, so I will not be doing the hockey. I will be doing UFC every now and then. I like a couple UFC plays just to get some good value in there and stuff like that. So,
well, Wes, how about you? Are you doing much watching of UFC fights?
I don't do a lot of UFC fights right now. We're transitioning into NBA, NHL playoffs. I'll watch the UFC fights just for fun. Quite honestly, we do so much deep digging with 151 Sports into all of the sports. Between football and March Madness was a big deal this year. We're spending more time than ever on horse racing. We were gearing up for CFL, and then, bittersweet, but they're moving that into August. So CFL is usually a big time for us. But, usually the MMA, that's just be a fan and enjoy it. And it's a comfortable, enjoyable thing to not have to break down a game. And give picks, at least one of the major sports. But, we got about a week before we transition into the playoffs for NBA and NHL. So to UFC, no.
The question I've got for my conference this week has to do with the NHL or the NBA playoffs, and we're going to get to that right after this. You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network and Sports Betting Week.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Sports Betting Weekly.
You keep lying when you ought to be truthing. And you keep losing when you ought to not bet.
Sit back and enjoy the show.
Winner, chicken dinner.
Welcome back to Sports Betting Weekly. If you missed the beginning of the show, we cashed tickets in 7 minutes. 7 minutes, we cashed tickets. It's the reason why this belly up sports show that we got makes that Worldwide Sports Radio Network app worth its weight in Bitcoin. And the reason I use that is because if you know anything about sports betting, you know probably quite a bit about Bitcoin too, don't you, Black Hawk West?
You sure do, and timing your withdrawal can be just as powerful as having the right pick.
We did. My son and I, we sat around for 5 hours one day because we were making a big cash out. I forget what we hit on. It wasn't the Super Bowl. It might have been something. Oh, it was a national championship game. I think it was a national championship game. And so, yeah, it was like, 10% of a G note is $100. So,
Well, in these days, you should probably check Elon Musk's tweets to see what he's got to say, because that might help you cash out or not.
Exactly. All right, so I mentioned before the break that you brought up a great question. And this is my question for my two guys. Let's start with Jonathan from San Antonio. NHL or NBA playoffs, which is better?
I'm not versed in the NHL to bet it. I'm a casual bettor. I'm a degenerate in a good way, though. Like, I know what I can lose and cannot lose. I bet on everything. The games that I'm going to tell you to bet on, it's not going to be NHL. If I see like a plus 250, I might throw a couple dollars on it just to see, because it's plus 250. So for me, it's NBA playoffs all day. And I think the way the lines are set in the NBA playoffs, I forgot who it was a couple weeks ago was out, and he said something. I think it was Kendrick Perkins. And he came out and he said that it's harder to win NBA championship than it is a Super Bowl. And that's like further from the truth. And I haven't played any professional sports. There's no way. Because in NBA, they set those lines, and they are set to a T. The better team usually wins the 7-game series. Now, within a series, you can find out different, hey, this team's up 2-0. This team in game 3 getting a few points, it might be the better play. You can find some value within a series, but the NBA is, I think you're going to find a way where I think a lot of squares actually do well in the NBA playoffs. The last couple of years, you look at the squares, I think there's a lot of blowouts too, because I think teams get up 20 and the other team throws it in. How many times do you see Popovich mid-third quarter down 20? All right, we lost this game, move it on. And so you see a lot of that in the NBA playoffs. So you can read that. I have bet NHL hockey in the playoffs, It's wild. It is some of the most exciting, wild sports betting I've ever done.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, right, the point spread in an NBA game, if the teams are even and they're at home, could be like 4 or 5 points. That's the over/under in a playoff game, Wes, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it really is. It's where I sit on it is, I mean, we can debate all day long which one is more entertaining, but I would argue that, when you're in double overtime, sudden death, and the next goal wins, the NHL will certainly have you on your seat as a fan. The NBA, I agree with what you're saying. Teams will pack it in. My approach to both is series prices. I'm looking for value. I'm not going to take a series that's anything beyond, minus 140 or minus 130. I'll look for that favorite to catch some value on the series. In the NHL one I'm looking at right now, Boston is a minus 150. I'm hoping that they lose that first game and I can catch them at a plus 120 to win the series. But in the NHL last season, I went 9-3 on NHL series plays. With the NHL, there's a lot of physicality towards the end of games that can carry over into the following game. And then there's the advantage of the home ice with the line change. So I don't know that one's better or worse than the other. My plays within both are the series plays, but then game to game, I'm looking for big margins of victory and trying to find value on the dog, closing the gap. On the NHL side, the goalie is getting pulled. If the team's down by 2, team's down by 3, I'm looking at that favorite halfway through the third period, and I'm probably laying additional points because the goalie's coming out. The chances are an empty netter is going to happen. In the playoffs, losing by 3 hurts you emotionally a little bit more than losing by 2 or 1. So I'm looking for that empty netter late, but most of my plays are series plays, and I'm looking for value, both NBA and NHL.
I do remember last year you did very, very well with those series plays, and that's one thing about it is it could be pretty stress-free if your team wins. If you got, like you said, if you got a dog and they lose the first, a favorite, they lose the first game, then it's good for hopping on again maybe. But if you're just playing the best team and they're winning and they get up 2-0, boy, it just takes the stress out of watching games. It really does. And we talked about that when I visit Dan and Chris on the Belly Ups on Saturday night on the Belly Up Fantasy Show. I talk about $100 is not equal. If you bet $100 and your team goes up by 20 and just coast, give it 12, and they never, ever get close to 15 versus a team that has to go overtime and wins by a half a point, it's almost like that second bet, the half a point overtime win, was worth so much more than $100 that you shouldn't have made it. It's probably taking years off of your life,
Everybody's got a different definition of it. During the week on my members page, almost everybody during the week is spending their time in the market, whether it's crypto or options or just betting, playing blue chip stocks. And, a minus 150 to return $50 on your 100 over the course of a 7-day series, that is a miracle return on Wall Street. So it just depends on how you're approaching it.
No, we talked about that with horse racing. You know what? When I have Paulo on, we talk a lot of horse racing, and he bets over in Europe where they have the place pools. So the horses just got to come in first or second, and you'll get, $3.70 for your $2. But everybody bashes that because it's less than 1-to-1. But when you're betting look at the Colorado tonight is minus 435 against the Kings. Minus 435. Secretariat.
See, I'd blind bet the Kings at that. That's what I would do. I'd put a couple of dollars on the Kings just in case. I would never minus 425.
I'm telling you right now. Wes knows this because he's been here a long time. We've been listening from Jonathan from San Antonio. You were a kid when we first knew you. You're a man now, but you were a kid. It's been like 6 years. The bottom line is you've never, ever been afraid to hop on a plus number, and you do very well. And we all talk about it all the time. How'd you do? I went 5 out of 10. No, I won like 2-3 units because all it takes is a couple dogs. and you look at your Orioles. I mean, last year you hit the Orioles a few times. You were just starting to work.
They were hot.
Insider, and they were every night they were plus 2 something. And you just ran on. I think they had 4 or 5 in a row.
They were hot every night.
Yeah. All right, so let's recap
Yeah, I mean,
our
and
live bet.
getting plus 200 it's hard.
Oh, of course. Let's recoup our live action with the NHL. We already cashed. I did take the game over though for the game as well, so I would like to see another goal there, maybe 2 in the first quarter. I will tell you a quick shower story. It was nothing. I went to the shower. I came out. It was 2-0 in the last 4 minutes of the game. I have no idea what it was during the week. I went in the shower a loser, and I came out a winner. Plus, I felt more refreshed because I used Dove body wash. Dove body wash with no extra chemicals. So, what about NBA? With NBA, we looked at that game with Miami and Philly because, Jonathan, you were on Miami already, and they were out to a big lead. And then with the baseball, I have Houston, and that is over 1.5, I think, for the first 5 innings. So that's kind of where we're at.
We have a game that starts in about 5 minutes. I think you got some value on it. I'm on them. I'm on the Rockies tonight. You're getting I got them at like 150. They might be around 145 right now. You got Castillo versus Gonzalez. You look at the matchup. Both pitchers are in the 6s. Probably going to be a lot of points. I took the over in this game as well, which is horrible for me because I could have had it at 10. I got it at 11. So I still jumped on it. But Luis Castillo is not the same pitcher he was last year. He's got a road ERA over 7. The Rockies have not seen him often. But the 2 batters that have seen him is Tapia and Blackman, a combined 7 or 12 against him with 3 home runs. So I think he's going to get rocked. Probably going to be some bullpen action. Both bullpens struggle. The Reds, I think, have the second worst bullpen. So you're going to get a lot of points. I think the Rockies at plus 150 is the wrong spread. So that's a good – it starts in about 5 minutes. I think that's a good little value right there.
I want to hop on that and tell you what happened. When we were they asked me before I left, because we always talk NBA on Saturday nights because we do a fantasy contest on Sunday, and the winner every week gets their name in a hat. At the end of the month, they pick out a winner, and I ship them a free souvenir football, one of our championshipfootballs.com products. But they asked me, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I'm taking any team that's playing in Colorado, I'm taking their team total over. Because Colorado gives up 6 runs to the Little League team. The local Little League team in Boulder scored 6 runs on him.
Gonzalez, his ERA is 6 for the year, but his home ERA is down at 3. So I think he can. The only problem with him is he doesn't go past 5 innings. So once he'll go 5, he'll give you like solid action at home at 5, and then you got the bullpen. So you got. I mean, they probably do give up a lot of runs. As long as we score more, the Rockies score more, we're good. We're good.
Right. Well, we because they played the Padres, we had them on here, so I got to watch them. And actually, in the first game in 7 innings, the Padres got it. But in the second game, they didn't. So it was the first time I think they lost. They might have gone I think it was 9-2. The other team's over in the streak that I had them. And that's all I'm looking for. If I could find a hot team and run with it, I'm going to go for it, you know? All right, so do we get any other scores in that NHL game?
Not so far. We're still 2-0. I apologize. In 1.7 seconds, we are now 3-0 Minnesota. That Blues 2.5. I need to check what it is, but that one is even juicier to me now, being down 3-0.
Well, let's do it. You know what? I cashed, right? And I got what did I get the over at on that game? 5.5?
No, I think you jumped on 7.5.
No.
Yeah,
I went back 7.5.
I went back in. When they scored twice, I went back in. So the original one, I think, is 5.5. So I'm going to go
original.
I'm going to go back in. So I'm going back in song because again, I had 6 bets in my first game. It was coffee. It was coffee. I hadn't even eaten breakfast yet. I was on coffee. So we're going to hockey, right? And we're going to St. Louis, and we're going to dabble with a small little play on the puck line. And I got them 3.5 and 2.5.
What's St. Louis at the money line right now?
Wow, look at
that's
you.
probably what I'm going to try and do.
7s, all 7s,
money
baby.
line.
Slot machine, 7 across the board.
The Blues money line is plus 375, but the value, it's now plus 800.
Yeah, it went up to 855.
Oh, yeah. I'll take that.
But that over 2.5 St. Louis is now plus 175 for the Blues just simply to score 2.5 goals. that high, I'm not going to touch that. I'm going to wait now because it's going to go to 1.5, and I'm happy to go minus 120 on that 1.5 because it's easier to cash.
It's going to go 1.5 when?
I think if we get out of this period 3-0, the Blues team total is going to go to 1.5. That's what my crystal ball says.
Okay, so we'll sit tight. All right, so let's next. All right, so we've checked our live plays. We've already cashed tickets. I'm a little bit tired today, mostly because I've rearranged my office and spent a lot of time at Best Buy and dealing with the guys at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. So I want to give a shout out to both Errol and Speedy Petey for helping with the show. Remember, they follow us, so it's important that we pump our name out there. So when you're on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network at 9 o'clock Eastern, so if it's 9 o'clock in New York, you don't have to do anything because you got the loudmouth. And if you think about it, who doesn't know a good loudmouth? I got like 3 friends that would fall into that show's category. All right, so let's do this. On the bottom of the screen, you can bet the same action as the guys. Your intro special is the weekend for $15. Check out the cash tickets page on sportsbettingweekly.com. You get plays for both Saturday and Sunday. Now, I'm going to add one more thing. It's not typed at the bottom. And here's what I'm going to say. We're cashing the tickets whether you're involved or not, okay? We're not betting enough money that, if you don't hop on, it's going to go from 7.5 to 8.5, or the team total is going to go up a half a run. That's not how this works. All we know is you're going to wake up on Monday with more money than you have when you start. It's really that simple. And you know what? That's why I don't play golf anymore. That never happened to me with golf. And when I bet on sports, my shoulder almost never hurts. Almost never hurts. So that's one banner. Then I'm going to go here and I'm going to take this other banner and I'm going to say you can check out John on Instagram. Now let's give a shout out to John. Get well soon. And hopefully he'll be back next week. You can follow Wes on Twitter at 151_sports. You can play like the public. Here's the link, bit.ly cash tickets here. So you go to bit.ly, cash tickets here, and you can play for $15. All right, so this weekend, I know what we're going to do. Remember, we got the loudmouths coming, so we're going to talk a little about championship footballs, mostly because if you're in Texas, now how far are you in San Antonio from Houston?
It's about a 4-hour drive.
It's funny because we get to Texas from San Antonio or from San Diego. We get to Texas, and we have to stop for the night because we still have so much more Texas to go. Texas is so big, you just don't realize it.
It's a day.
So we're gonna hear some
Texas is a day.
Footballs.com, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the weekend. You're listening to Sports Betting Weekly on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network and Belly Up Sports Podcast Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Sports Betting Weekly.
Sit back and enjoy the show.
Winner, chicken dinner.
Welcome back to Sports Betting Weekly. I am second half Chaz. You are watching. If it's 8:45 in New York right now, it doesn't matter where you are. What time is it in New York? It's 8:45 on Long Island, where the Worldwide Sports Radio Network is, and you've already cashed tickets because how many minutes? 7 minutes it took us to cash a ticket. 7 minutes. That's not too shabby. You might be watching on the Belly Up Sports Podcast Network, and if you are, you're listening. You're not actually watching because it's the audio podcast. And at sportsbettingweeklylive.com, you'll always catch our very last show. Now, what's important about that? Every single show. I have shows from when Jonathan's voice was breaking when he was younger that we have on our podcast. Every single show we've ever had is on our website. The bottom line is you don't have to believe us. Just go listen and then go to cash tickets, hashtag cash tickets. Go to sportsbettingweekly.com. Look for that tab, hashtag cash tickets, and you'll do exactly what I said you would do. You know what? I feel like some weeks, Blackhawk West, I focus on the cashing tickets much too much, and then I realize, and it passed.
Yeah, but it's okay to focus on cashing tickets when we're cashing tickets.
The only thing I care about, really. Don't get me wrong, what I'm talking about in sports betting. It really is. Give me money to bet another bet. The first bet's the most important one. I hit 6 in a row to start my day. Actually, I hit 8 in a row to start my day, but I started 6 in a row in one game because then I could buy my pretzels and my beers and my lunches at the place. There's nothing worse than needing have the bottom of the fifth, have the over. You need a run or you ain't eating lunch to the next ticket cash. It's not worse than that. And then, of course, at the end of the day, sooner or later, you're going to have to get back to reality. It means you're going to have to leave your phone or your computer or your sports book or wherever you are and interact with those other people in your life. And if you have money in your pocket, oh my God, interactions with humans is so much easier when you have money. It's just really that simple. All right, so let's talk about this weekend. We're going to start with our Vegas Insider. Do you guys do anything special on the weekends, or is it kind of special every day then?
No, it really is. It's on a day-to-day basis. I kind of look at, and the thing with baseball, and that sometimes my plays come in a little later, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours before game time. I kind of wait for lines to get released. Sometimes specific players struggle against specific pitchers, and you kind of got to see what the matchup is because you can't have. I think the other day it was the Dodgers, they're minus 200, but the lineup, I think maybe the Rockies, I don't know. They hit like 500 against them over 25 at bats. Like they, for whatever reason, could hit, so I cashed a little plus 250. Sometimes I gotta wait and see what happens. I think a team that he's going to be pitching this weekend, he'll be on the lineup, is going to be the Orioles, and they're probably going to get some big money, B-Dogs against the Yankees. But I think John Means is the guy to look out for. I think because he's on the Orioles, John Means is going to continually be an underdog, and you're going to get great value. I hit him against the Mets. He pitched great. Should have been a win. The bullpen come in the ninth, and I lose. But either way, I'd rather lose that way with plus money than holding a minus 150 on a game that I needed 2 runs in the ninth inning to get. So I think any game John Means is pitching is a good game to look out for. He should be due up here against the Yankees. You're going to get great value. And then other than that, just kind of got to see what matchups are going to come out, who's going to be in the lineup. We got a lot of injuries. I know the Brewers, that's part of the reason I took the under today. The Brewers are really injured. They got guys they got 4 100 batters in their lineup right now because of all the injuries that are accumulating. 2 starting pitchers are great. So I think you just got to kind of look out for the lineups. And unfortunately for baseball, it's kind of a detriment because you aren't getting those lineups until sometimes an hour before the game, before they they release it, which is like, okay, now DVD. And you should have already done your work, but it's a little delayed.
The pitcher in baseball is the most important guy in the field because he touches the ball, and we have seen, you mentioned Means, he threw a no-hitter. I mean, we have seen when a good pitcher is on, the game is theirs, but except for the Mets. Remember the Mets cost me that. The guy gave up 1 run, and I lost on the Mets. I couldn't believe it. All right, so what we're going to do is when we do our social media about this show and we send everybody to sportsbettingweeklylive.com, what we'll do is we'll include sublinks to Jonathan's page on vegasinsiders.com, and you can check it out for yourself. Black Hawk West, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're working a lot? You're playing a lot? What are you doing?
All of the above for sure. Saturday, obviously, my eyes are going to be on that Pimlico card. But in the NHL, this is a pretty significant weekend for me. Not in terms of amount of games, but just the action on particular games. So Saturday, I'm looking at the Bruins-Capitals game, and I'm only looking at that for an opportunity. I am hoping that the Caps come out and win this game 1, and then we find some value on the Bruins for the series. The Bruins, some of the moves they made just before the trade deadline, I think that they're going to be very hard to stop in this first series, but I don't want to do it at minus 150. So I'm hoping that the Caps steal game 1. When we go into Sunday, we got the FCS championship. And so last weekend, we nailed both plays on the FCS, one of which was a dog money line outright winner. I'm on the dog again, and I'm taking the points. I'm already in the money line because of the future bet and the open parlay from last week. But I really like Sam Houston against South Dakota State. South Dakota State is a lot of big time running, and they get a lot of rushes and rushing yards from the quarterback. But I'm sorry, South Dakota State. Sam Houston is amazing against the rush. They're averaging under 80 yards a game allowed rushing. And so they have a legitimate quarterback at Sam Houston State. So I think they get some points on the board and they can force South Dakota into some one-sided play. And so I'm taking the +5.5, the +5, the +4, wherever you find it. I'm taking the points. I think a field goal wins this game on either side, but I'm also in the money line on Sam Houston State. And then the other thing I'm looking at on Sunday is some other NHL games. I'm on the Islanders to win this first series. The Islanders are +130 going against Pittsburgh. I think the Islanders are going to win the series. I am not prepared to determine in how many games. What I really like about the Islanders versus Pittsburgh is, Pittsburgh, we know the stars, and they can score goals for sure. But Pittsburgh allows a lot of goals. They allow almost the most goals out of any team that has qualified for the playoffs. The Islanders are number 2 in the league as far as goals allowed, but the way that they're doing it, they're not doing it through having the best goalie in hockey. They're doing it through the way that their defense is playing and limiting shots and blocking shots, and just they're not allowing their goalie to face vulnerable scenarios. So I really like the Islanders to win this series, and a +130 for the series. That's my best value play of this first round of the NHL playoffs. So that's what my eyes are on this weekend coming up.
Talked about it. You just had a great success. So if that was not a reason to say, hey, you know what, maybe I'm not a good hockey handicapper, and I think no one's going to argue that in most parts of our country, hockey's the 4th most popular sport. Now, I'm from the Northeast, and you're from up in the Midwest, and the bottom line is some places where their hockey teams are just as big as their football teams. I'm talking generalization. So if you're like most of us, and you still don't know all the rules, and Wes has explained to me the home team gets the last change thing at least 3 times, twice on the air, and I still don't really understand it. But I'm going to pick. This is the perfect weekend to start. You go to sportsbettingweekly.com, you click on the #cash tickets page, you click on Wes's information, and then you follow along. And the bottom line, he's got guys that does it. He does it with the stock market. It's investing. He calls it sports investing. It's not 151 Sports. Hope you get lucky. That's not the name of his thing. So, and then of course you can catch Jonathan on VegasInsiders.com. I'm going to be focusing on baseball. It was so funny when Jonathan mentioned the work. We do this show for an hour on Thursday nights. And somebody asked me, how hard is it doing this show? I said, the hard part of doing the show is really watching my face, because everything else I'm doing 2 or 3 hours a day. To do the easy sports data that causes me to win so many bets in one game is simply hours and hours and hours every day. And Jonathan was saying the same thing. And sometimes you're waiting for information. I had to run this morning. I had to run with one TBD pitcher to be determined. One I was able to get at the last minute. But it really changes everything if you go and look to handicap a baseball game and you don't know who's pitching. He touches the ball. A guy that throws a no-hitter is going to touch a ball 100 times. The only other person that's going to touch it 100 times is the catcher in that kind of game, because the infielders are catching it a few times. If you get 27 outs, that's a lot less than 100, that's for sure. So when we let you go, we're going to recap. Jonathan was all over Miami early. Wes has already given us the winners. We have the bases loaded, 1 out in the bottom of the second for Houston. That team total over is 1.5 for the first 5 innings. We're following the loudmouths. You're going to get the loudmouths next. So hang around. This is the Sports Betting Weekly. I am second half Chaz. Always be cashing.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.